Hello friends, my name is Dr. Maulik Joshi and welcome to Virtual Classroom of Clinical Pharmacology. In today's session, we will discuss how to calculate equivalence and non-inferiority margin in clinical trial. So if you like this video, then I would like to request you to click on the like button. And if you want to have some more videos in the future, then I would like to request that you hit the subscribe button. Now, in clinical trials, there are three types of statistical hypotheses. One is superiority, other is equivalence, and third one is a non-inferiority. Now, what are these types of hypotheses and why it is there? I am not going to cover in this session. For that, I have kept one link in the description in which my friend Dr. Anand is explaining this. In this session, we will only focus that out of this hypothesis, especially in non-inferiority and equivalence design, one of the component is margin. So how to calculate this margin and why we need to be very much particular about this margin. So we'll also understand the importance and the impact of this margin. So let's first discuss the importance of margin. Margin is having impact on sample size as well as study pass or fail. For example, if we take higher margin, then sample size will be lesser, which makes study more economical. And the chances of study getting pass is also higher, which is also good from commercial point of view. If we take a lesser margin than what is required, then what will happen? Sample size will be unnecessarily higher and chances of study pass will be lesser, even if the drug is good. So that means whenever we take a margin very arbitrarily, there is a risk. So that's why it is very important we take margin exactly what it is required. Now for this margin, there are two ways. Either we take margin which is already given by some regulatory agency so that whenever we use it, it is acceptable to them. Or in other scenario, the margin is calculated. Most commonly, what happens that there are very few instances where the regulatory agency they upfront give the margin. Like in case of diabetes, for HbA1c, they say you can take margin of zero point 0.6 or zero point 0.3, zero point 0.4. But in most of the cases, one has to calculate the margin. So that's why it becomes very important that we will discuss today that what are the ways for this margin calculation. So for margin calculation, I have listed down three steps. The first step is searching trials for studies. Second step is doing the meta-analysis of the studies and calculate the combined effect size. Now this effect size is actually what is risk difference and what is risk ratio. We will see more in detail in the subsequent slides. Then step 3 is to calculate the equivalence margin. Now let's check out the first step. First step is search for trials. So we will take example of trastuzumab. Now suppose there is one organization which is interested in calculating or doing study for trastuzumab biosimilar. Now for this biosimilar study, they have to do phase 1 study and phase 3 study. Now for phase 3 study, which is a clinical equivalence study, they have to calculate the sample size. Now when they want to calculate sample size, they have to calculate the margin. So how to derive this margin? So for that, the researcher has to search data of studies like randomized, double-blind, parallel group studies of a biosimilar plus chemotherapy versus chemotherapy. So these should be the study types. So one should look those studies in which diseases are designed. So, for example, if I am doing a study of trastuzumab biosimilar, then I will be looking those study in which trastuzumab plus some chemotherapy is tested against the chemotherapy. So, in this design, at the end, what we will have the true effect of trastuzumab. So, now the thing is, what are the sources in which we can get this information? So, for example, for trastuzumab, the brand name is Herceptin. So, one can look the following sources. Like one can use European Public Assessment Report, which is known as EPAR in short form, for the scientific discussion, product information. One can also download US FDA label, US FDA medical review. So these two are the standard document. Now, what will happen since you are doing study of biosimilar, you will have already innovators data. So here, in case of trastuzumab, the data is Herceptin. So you will have data from European submission or US FDA at least. Plus, what you can do, you can also do a literature search. Okay, you can type keywords like trastuzumab and breast cancer, and then you will get those studies which are not been discussed in European Public Assessment Report and the US FDA report. Okay, so these are the sources based on which you can gather studies, which is randomized double-blind parallel group study of trastu plus some chemotherapy or versus chemotherapy. Okay, now once you collected all those studies, for example, you have collected you identified two studies. Now, what to do? So this is an example. Okay, so this is the source of EPAR in Herceptin. Now, while going through this EPAR, we can highlight two such studies. For example, you can see there is a Herceptin and Herceptin plus paclitaxel. It is compared against the paclitaxel. Okay, so this is a trastuzumab. So this is a biologic plus chemotherapy. And it is tested against the chemotherapy. There is another study, Herceptin plus docetaxel, and it is compared against the docetaxel. So according to my requirement, there are two such studies. Now in these two studies will give me the effect of Herceptin. So what I can see the response rate. Okay, so response rate is objective response rate. In biosimilar study, for efficacy endpoint, we don't take overall survival or progression-free survival as a primary endpoint. We take objective response rate because it's a surrogate marker. It is more suitable for biosimilar equivalent study. So objective response rate is 49% with Herceptin plus paclitaxel and 17 with paclitaxel. Then 61 with Herceptin plus docetaxel and 34 with the docetaxel. So this information I will first of all collect. Okay. So now you have some idea that whenever you are searching the sources, what part of the result you will be focusing on. Once you have this data, what to do? Then you will do the meta-analysis. So currently, for the meta-analysis, what we will do, we will make a table. Now, in this table, we have a study 1 and study 2 that we have seen earlier. We have the responses. Okay. So here, once we have these responses, we will calculate the risk difference and risk ratio. So risk difference for study 1 is 60.9 minus 36.2. So the count will be 24.7. Then risk ratio will be 60.9 divided by 36.2. Okay, and similarly you will have risk difference and risk ratio for study 2. So we have 24.7 and 31.7 risk difference. Now we will collect as many as article like this. Okay, currently I am showing only two studies, but we can calculate as many as can. Then once we have all this data, we will calculate the combined effect size. Okay, so combined effect size, how to calculate, I'm not going to discuss in this session, but in the description I am giving a method how to calculate this combined effect size, which is very easy to calculate. So the combined effect size of risk difference is 28, with the 95% confidence interval is 79.9 and 38.1. And then for risk ratio, we have 1.9 with 1.45 is a lower bound and 2.5 is upper bound. So please remember that this 28 and 1.9 is called point estimate, 17.9 is called lower bound, 38.1 will be called upper bound of CI. Okay. Now we'll go to the next step. So my next step is to calculate the equivalence margin. So currently what I'm going to do, I'm just giving you an example that in equivalence margin what we are meaning. We mean that the 95% CI, it should be both side of the zero. Okay, and how far it can go, it is called delta. So it is determined by this margin. So my drug should lie, the 95% CI should lie in between these two, in this graded area. Okay, if it is there, then I can say that my margin is my study is passing and my biosimilar is equivalent to the innovator. Now here, what you are seeing on the right side of this figure, there is M1 margin and there is M2 margin. Okay, so when we calculate equivalence margin, we have to have one M1 value and one we should have an M2 value. Okay, now how to calculate this M1 and M2 value, we will see in the next slide. So first of all, what is M1? The M1 is the lower bound of confidence interval of the estimated active control effect based on past study. So you are familiar with this table, right? So in the past study, we have seen that the risk difference was 28 and risk ratio was 1.9. Now M1 says lower bound of CI of estimated active control effect based on past study. So this is CI. So the lower bound is 17.9 for this difference. Okay. So the M1 will be 17.9. Risk ratio, the lower bound is 1.452. So M1 will be 1.45. So we are on the last step of margin calculation. So now we have calculated what is M1. So now you would have fair idea how to derive M1. All right. Now M2. What is M2? M2 is 50% of lower bound of confidence interval. So M1 was 17.9 for effect size. When we do the 50% of this lower bound, so M2 will come to 9%. Okay, so my M2 is 9%. Now M2 for risk ratio, so lower bound is 1.45 and it will be 50% of 1.2. Now for this 50%, it is not as simple like you divide 1.4 by 2 and you will get 50%. Okay, because this is based on some logarithmic assumption. So for risk ratio, what are the steps for M2 calculation? So as you can see, first of all, you will take natural log of lower bound of 95% CI. That is 1.45 lower bound is a lower bound and the natural log is 0.37. Then you will take 50% of this 0.37, which is coming to 0.19. Then you will take exponential of 0.19, which is coming to 1.2. So this 1.2 will become your upper bound. Okay, so sorry, upper margin, and 1.2 1 divided by 1.2 will become 0.84, so it becomes your lower bound. Okay, so once you have this M2 1.2, okay, then the next step you will calculate the entire margin. So for risk ratio, the margin is coming to 0.84 and 1.2 based on this method. And for risk difference, the M2 plus or minus 9, when you take plus or minus of M2, it will become equivalence margin. So for risk ratio, the margin will be -9 to +9. And for risk ratio, the margin will be 0.84 to 1.2. Okay, so this is how you will calculate the margin. Now this margin you will put in your sample size calculation, and based on this by this difference and by this ratio you will calculate the sample size. And once the study is completed, then the result analysis, for result analysis, this will be the margin you are going to use. Okay, now let's take another example of bevacizumab. So currently I'm just showing the combined effect size of bevacizumab based on some studies. So the 17.3 is the risk ratio, lower bound is 30.7 and upper bound is 20.9. For risk ratio, the point estimate is 1.8, lower bound is 1.615, upper bound is 2.116. Okay, so as we know that M1 is the lower bound confidence interval of the effect size, right? So lower bound is 13.7, this is my M1, and 1.61 is risk ratio, lower bound, this is my M1. Now for risk difference, M2 is half of M1, so 13.7 divided by 2. Okay, so the value will come to around 7 percentage, and then the 7 plus or minus 7 will be the equivalence margin for risk difference approach. For risk ratio approach, once we have the 1.615 and M1, then based on the calculation that we have seen earlier in the studies, we will calculate the M2 as a 1.27, and then we will take lower bars in that. For that, we will divide 1 with 1.27 and 0.78 will come. So this is your equivalence margin. Okay, so for risk difference approach, the margin is plus or minus 7, and for risk ratio approach, the margin is 0.78 to 1.27. So this is how you will calculate margin for both this approach. Now one point I would like to address is that what are we are doing? We are calculating margin for risk difference approach and risk ratio approach. Why? Because sometimes regulatory agency, like suppose you are doing a trial for Europe and US FDA both, then Europe, that is a regulatory agency which is known as EMA, they may say that you calculate sample size based on risk difference approach. Okay, like in case of trastuzumab biosimilar program, if you see the publications, in that publication, the researcher, they have calculated sample size for EMA based on risk difference approach, because this is what regulatory agencies expectation. And sometimes US FDA says you go with risk ratio. So if you are going with a both market for same molecule, then you have to calculate sample size for both these approaches. So for that you need to calculate margin for both these approaches. Okay, and that's why it is important that we understand that if we want to calculate margin for either of these approaches, then what to do. Okay, so in summary, what I would like to emphasize that margin is very critical component in clinical trial, because it has an impact on sample size and also study pass or fail. So it should not be taken very arbitrarily. There has to be some reason of this margin selection, either it's based on regulatory guidances or this calculation, or maybe you can take like some other person or some researcher or in published literature they have taken some margin, then you can take this margin, but that should be your last choice. Ideally you should take a margin which is either given by regulatory or you calculate and you see. Okay, so for that you have to first of all search trials which we have discussed earlier, right? There should be a trial wherein the biosimilar along with chemotherapy is tested against the chemotherapy, so that what you will have the actual effect of this biosimilar. Okay, then in step 2 you do meta-analysis and calculate the complete effect size. So for effect size you will have risk difference and risk ratio. Once you have such meta-analysis and combined effect size, then based on the lower bound, then you calculate M1, which is a lower bound effect size, then you calculate M2. Okay. So I hope you would have liked this video. Thank you very much.